Don't let your TSP go to waste. What if I told you that you could be a millionaire in just 4 steps using the TSP alone? Let me explain. The TSP is the government's version of the retirement system, right? There's your Roth and your traditional, like a 401k essentially, okay? So your traditional TSP is the money that goes into it gets invested over time, traditional in, 401k. But by the time that you retire, the money is going to be taxed as it's coming out, okay? Now, one might ask why that's bad. One might ask, why it's good. What's the pros and cons of it? So when the money is taxed out of the TSP, there's no telling what taxes are going to look like 30, 40 years from now or whenever you plan to retire, okay? On the contrary, the Roth TSP, the money gets taxed while it's going in. So all that money that's in there building compounding interest, growing essentially, grows tax-free. So when you take it out, you're not paying taxes on it because taxes were already due. Taxes were paid already, okay? So whenever you take out money from it, that's what you're taking out. So with that being said, there's essentially 4 steps that you can use to become a millionaire by the time that you retire, okay? Step number 1 is match at least 5%. And the reason why I say 5% is because the TSP, the government will match you the first 3%, 100%, like 1-for-1 match, essentially. So it's free money, okay? The next 2% is a 50% match. So that 5% baseline across the board, that's free money that you get for essentially just doing nothing but investing it. And you have to take advantage of that in order to max out like what is given to you, okay? So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is get your money out of the G and F fund. G and F fund are essentially government bonds. They're funds that are safe. By default, you are already contributing to them. The reason why I say get out of them is because yes, they are the safest, but when you're growing an investment portfolio, you want to play a more aggressive route when growing your portfolio. Take risks in the beginning because you're growing wealth, and when you have wealth and you have something to protect, that's when you should be playing it safe, okay? Now, GNF fund, they're by default the safest route because they're backed by the US government, okay? So with that being said, they hardly grow, if that makes sense. They're safe, but they don't really, matching with inflation, it's not much. So yes, it is growing and it's safe and it's, this, that, and the other. It's really not the best investment. It's not the best investment vehicle for you to put your retirement towards, okay? So on average, the G fund returns roughly 2.3% over a 10-year period. That's from 1990 to 2017, roughly. And it's steady growth, okay? Now, getting it out of that is just a few simple clicks. So if you just go into your TSP and change from the G fund and the F fund into the next portfolios that I'm gonna be talking about, then that could be the difference between $250,000 by the time you retire and like $1.2 million by the time you retire, with compounding interest, of course, and matching the 5% rule. So step number 3, where that money's going to after you get it out of the G or F fund, okay? And so what you're gonna be doing is invest the money into either the C, the S, or the I fund, because those are the highest ROI or return on investment, okay? Those match companies across the world, okay? So those aren't necessarily backed by the US government in the direct route of the G and F fund, but they're backed by us, by the US, by the US citizens or international citizens, the people. They're backed by the people because the C fund matches the S&P 500, which is the top 500 companies in the US. That's your big wigs, that's your, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, all that jazz, okay? And then your S fund And then your S fund is backed by something called the Dow Jones. It's essentially the top growth stocks. It's companies that aren't on the S&P 500 but are the top growing companies, smaller companies essentially. Okay, both have their pros and cons. The C fund returns on average over a 10-year period 11.8% according to the TSP.gov website, and the S fund returns an average of 7.8% backed by the Dow Jones on TSP website. And the I fund, I won't really cover it much in this video only because it's not as a performer as the others, but it's your international stocks essentially. Okay, so by doing that would be the difference between, again, that $250,000 by the time that you retire and that $1.2 million by the time that you retire. Huge difference. That could be the difference between living, your dream when you're older, going on a freaking yacht, or traveling while while you can essentially, or just living paycheck to paycheck, depending on how you structure your retirement going forward. Okay, so with that being said, the biggest thing that you have to do is, I guess the last step to this process is just wait and let the money grow, let it compound, because that's your strength right there. That's your superpower. You're young. For the majority of people that are watching this, you're young, and you can wait the long game or just forget about it altogether, because by the time that you get out the military, you can no longer contribute to the TSP. Okay, but that money stays in there, continuously compounding, continuously growing over the duration until you retire. So a quick recap. Step 1, contribute at least 5%. Step 2, get your money out of the G and F fund. Step 3, invest it into the C, S, or I fund, whatever floats your boat. And then step 4, wait and let it compound. Don't touch it. Once it's there, it's there. Don't even think about it. It's already directly taken out of your bank account whenever you automatically, invest it into the TSP. But when you're young, you have to think about this, because the power of compounding interest is theoretically exponential. Okay, so the more time that you allow it to sit there, the bigger the returns are. Okay, thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and leave a comment. I'll make more of these and tell me how it goes. See ya.